With everything that's happening right now, the question has to be asked, is there a concerted effort being made to flood cities that were formerly known as sanctuary cities with federal troops? Is martial law next? This is really the question we need to ask ourselves.
We're doing immigration actions throughout the country. We're not saying we're going to favor one area over another. We're all over the country, in every neighborhood, in every city, and you're going to see an expansion of that. Like I just said, we're going to increase the teams greatly. So you're going to see more teams on the streets you've never seen before. You're going to see more worksite enforcement than you've ever seen in the history of this nation. You got sanctuary cities, or I said, we're going to flood the zone.
So the optics of the moment really do seem like there is an effort to increase enforcement specifically within these targeted zones. Like Mr. Homan just said, these sanctuary cities are going to be flooded with more agents than you've ever seen before. So the consequence of that is, yes, blue states, blue cities will be targeted more than red states and red cities, because it's the blue states and blue cities that had the sanctuary laws that protected migrants from deportation while allowing their legal process to actually take place. And what we're seeing all over the internet right now is ICE agents in plain clothes inside of courthouses waiting for migration cases to be finished. And even though continuances are being made, even though there's an appeal being made, they're still taking them, denying them the due process of actually having their continuation or their appeal and moving to deport them.
If we can't arrest a bad guy in the jail, one agent arrests a bad guy in the jail in the safety and security of the jail, which is safer for the officer, safer for the alien, and safer for the community, okay, you're going to force him in the community to find him. If we can't find him in the community, we're going to find him at the work site. So we're going to flood the zone, and sanctuary cities will get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the neighborhoods, more worksite enforcement, because we're going to get the bad guy.
Like I said, we have to look at reality. And reality is you are going to flood Democrat cities, Democrat states, let's call it what it is, with troops, even though they don't want them to be there. And we're going to use the word troops because that's how they're being treated. They're being given the powers that go beyond normal law enforcement that people deal with without any kind of local oversight. This is the militarization of the enforcement branch to crack down on state sovereignty. There's really no way to argue against that at this point. It's just whether you think that it's a good thing or whether you think it's a bad thing, whether you think it's justified or not. But I will say that the justification is being set up for a more militarized approach and even martial law in the future, perhaps, as what you're seeing is, like I said, a concerted media effort to portray the politicians and leaders of these areas to be inept, failing at their duties, and in portraying them as failing at their duties, this gives the justification for the government, the federal government, to come in and take control of these areas, take the power away from duly elected representatives and replace that with federal authority, which would also allow suspending the rights of normal American citizens who are just going about living their lives. 99% of people. You can say that you're doing this to catch the bad guys, but when you're stepping on the freedom of the American people and oppressing them to further your goal, then you are in fact the bad guy. Like I said, we can only judge by the actions and not by the intent. We are not a militarized nation. It is not normal for us to have convoys of armed personnel in mine-resistant vehicles going down the street, kicking down doors of restaurants, kicking down doors of residences, showing up at schools and arresting parents who were there for their children's graduations. This is not normal. This is not something that truly the American people are okay with. And I say that, but I know that at the same time that there's a vast number of Americans out there who are okay with it. That even though these people may have lived in this country for 30 years, 40 years, who may have been born here and are citizens, are okay with families getting split up either at the courthouse or any of these other places. Imagine going the legal way. Imagine going to court for your hearing, you following the law, doing exactly what you're supposed to do to have your asylum claim heard or to move in the direction to get your citizenship. And in that process, you're hauled out, detained, and deported. The result of this, what you're going to see is people aren't going to be going to their hearings anymore because you've created a hostile environment that says, well, if it doesn't work, I can't even get an appeal. I can't get a continuance. So what am I going to do? I can't just leave my family, right? I have to provide for my family. So when you deport these people, yes, you do rip apart these families. And the videos out there of children screaming for their mothers, or mothers being ripped away and taken to be deported, saying, my kid is in school waiting for me. They're going to be alone and still nothing. These kids are left with no one. Even though they may have been born in America, even though they are American citizens, and like I said, in this cold, callous approach, the clinical military government style with which this very sensitive matter is being handled is a gross violation of our just basic humanity and empathy.
California's governor doesn't want the federalized system here. He says he's got it under control. There's no shortage of law enforcement. Gavin Newsom said he's called in California Highway Patrol. He says the Trump administration is seeking a spectacle here. He's saying to protesters, don't get violent, don't engage.
Well, if he was doing his job, then people wouldn't have gotten hurt the last couple of days. We wouldn't have officers with a shattered wrist from bricks being thrown through their vehicles being burned, flags being burned in the street, and Molotov cocktails being thrown. Governor Newsom has proven that he makes bad decisions. The president knows that he makes bad decisions, and that's why the president chose the safety of this community over waiting for Governor Newsom to get some sanity. And that's one of the reasons why these National Guard soldiers are being federalized, so they can use their special skill set to keep peace. We're not going to let a repeat of 2020 happen. And if you remember, it all happened in Tim Walz's state in Minneapolis, which neighboring state, and a governor at the time. And Governor Tim Walz made very bad decisions and then tried to get the as governors to send our National Guard in to bail him out when he let his city burn for days on end.
Well, he called in National Guard 2 days after the protest, but that was a point of contention, I know, in hindsight.
There's a general rule when it comes to most Americans that when the government takes power, they rarely give it back. When the government suspends a right, they rarely unsuspend it. And this is one of my main contestations with everything that's at play right now, is the securing of rights, the securing of permission to suspend rights, constitutional rights by the government, and having it be normalized. Because once that becomes normal, it becomes normal practice. And it's something that doesn't go away. It's something that's lasting into the future. That's why one of the biggest problems I have is kind of this great hypocrisy that we see, that those who just a few years ago, when we were talking about the vaccine mandate, something that I had a big problem with, those same people who said, I'm not going to follow the law, I'm not going to follow what the government says, no, this is tyranny. These are the same people right now who are saying, well, you need to just follow the law, bend the knee. It is hypocrisy that is wide out in the open, and it should be called out because you just look like a fool. All it shows is that your interests aren't for the American people. They're for satisfying your own kind of base urges of seeing your opponents get crushed. And that's what a lot of this is. A lot of this, like I said, is setting up the stage. Kristi Noem here, a character that I really don't enjoy that much. I feel like she's really cosplaying a lot of what's happening, and she's really cosplaying the role of ICE officer out with her, coiffed hair and her body armor and decked out AR style rifle, looking to play the part like she's going and kicking down doors while at the same time getting ready for a photo shoot. And she has the moniker, the Ice Queen, for a reason. Just when you hear her talk, it's one without emotion. Of course, this is the lady who shot her dog, so what can you expect? Like I said, deportation and immigration is a very sensitive subject, and there's a reason why Americans argue about it so much. And to have such a cold approach where you are just going in, you're saying everyone is a criminal. Everyone. Not to any different degrees, but just saying, equivocating a murderer or someone who commits sexual violence on other people, equivocating them is the same as someone who just walked across the border. But someone who overstayed a visa is a simplification of the matter that isn't fair. It isn't just. But like I said, it's being done on purpose. The language that's being used is tailored language. None of these responses are being made organically. They're all synthetic because they need to move in the same direction without questioning each other. And that's why we're seeing such unchallenged, aggressive motion to push this policy, because there is such solidarity in this movement, in that side, in the highest power. And anytime somebody does voice their opinion, as we've seen with this administration, they are pushed out, they are fired, they are going to get kicked out of office. So, like I said, there is a kind of cultism that goes into this, and the problem with cultism is that it's pretty easy to deny the humanity of anybody who exists outside of the cult. So, these are interesting times that we're in, and like I said, all this seems to set the stage for martial law, something darker. And I think Trump said it best in describing what he wants to happen in the coming future in one of his latest posts on Truth Social. A once great American city, Los Angeles, has been invaded and occupied by illegal aliens and criminals. Now violent insurrectionist mobs are swarming and attacking our federal agents to try and stop our deportation operations. But these lawless riots only strengthen our resolve. I am directing Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, in coordination with all other relevant departments and agencies, to take all such action necessary to liberate Los Angeles from the migrant invasion and to put an end to these migrant riots. Order will be restored, the illegals will be expelled, and Los Angeles will be set free. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This is the announcement of a purge, and in a way, an ethnic cleansing of a kind, because in California itself, in Southern California, you are targeting one specific group that, for the most part, have been there for generations. Before America was a country, many of these people are descended from the indigenous groups that were there. So I don't know exactly what you hope to attain, and the only way that you can actually fulfill this kind of promise is by issuing martial law and going door to door and stopping every car and asking everyone for their papers. Is that the country that we want now? Is that what we want? This is Gestapo SS tactics, and I hate to use that language. I hated it when the left used it against the right, and I hate it when the right uses it against the left. But that is what this is. And honestly, you can't say otherwise. This sets up the stage for ethnic cleansing in America. It is purposely done, it is symbolic, and it is pointed in one direction. If you're still here at this point, like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member. As always, thank you for your support. These are crazy times, and I'm curious what you think about this entire situation with the occupation, because that's what this would be. With the occupation and cleansing of Los Angeles be of great benefit to the United States? Will it restore a kind of order to flood the streets with troops and impede the lives of everyday Americans as they go and live their lives? Whether you're on the right or whether you're on the left, I feel like this has to draw an image of something deeply un-American. Whether what you look like or what your beliefs are, I feel like we can all have kind of a common understanding that this moves in a very negative way. And once something like this becomes normalized, it becomes commonly used. But again, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate you, and we hope you have a good one.